Okay, we're going to start right here on the first page that opens up when you start a new exam. This is what we call the workup page. Usually for most clinics, it's the place where the technician will start to get history and visions and things like that. One of the things with our system is that you can click or type pretty much anywhere inside of the system depending on what your preference is, how you like to use a computer, and what you find most comfortable. If you're the type of person that likes to type, you can just put your cursor in somewhere and start typing whatever you want inside the box. If you find it easier to click and would rather do that, every single place inside the system you can usually click and select from a drop down like this from Visions, or you'll see what we call wizard tools, which are these little wand icons that you can click on to open up another dialog box that allows you to click. So let's show an example of that here in the chief complaint. If I want to build a chief complaint and I want to just click, I can click on my wizard tool and I get a little dialog box with some options in it. When I select these options, I'm going to be building a sentence, and it's going to build the sentence in the order that I select the items. So for example, I'm going to say patient is complaining of blurred vision in the right eye over the last 4 weeks. And then I'm going to click my add button. It'll turn that into a sentence for me and place it into my chief complaint. I could add another one if I wanted to. I could say patient's complaining of flashes and floaters in the left eye over the last 3 days, and I could add that in, and I could keep going like that until I get all my chief complaints in there. The history of present illness is a little different. What we've done on this wizard tool is we've broken it down by element category. This is very nice when you're trying to build an E&M code. You want to make sure you get all 4 elements of HPI. And it's also really nice if you're trying to train somebody like a new technician and you're trying to teach them how to make sure they get the 4 elements. This makes it so easy for them because they can visually see that they've gotten 4 elements. So for example, I can come in here and I can do the same elements that I got inside my chief complaint. I could say, okay, there's blur in the right eye over the last 4 months or 4 weeks, I think I said. 4 weeks, it's all the time, severity is 6 out of 10, it's gradually getting worse. And I can just click like that through all of the different elements that I want to document here. Once I've got them clicked, I just click the add button and it turns it into a phrase for me. It also blanked this out so that if I have another condition, I can document that as well. So this patient also has been having flashes and floaters in the left eye for 3 days. Let's say that that happens all the time. Severity is 2 out of 10, and it seems to come and go. Then I can click add, and it'll turn that into a phrase as well. And I can keep going like that until I get all the patient's conditions or symptoms or complaints with all of their different elements of history into my box down here. Once I'm done, I can click the done button. It'll remove that dialog box for us. And then we can see all the things that we documented here. Now, the nice thing about this too is even if you use the wizard tool, you can always come back in and put your cursor in here and type something, or you can go back and use the wizard tool again to add things onto the end. A lot of times the patient will tell the doctor something different than they told the workup technician, so the doctor can come in and put their cursor and edit things and move things around if they need to. One of the things that you'll see as we go through our system that we've built in some efficiency tools to try to help you document more quickly. This stuff that I'm going to show now is pretty straightforward. You probably know what goes in all these boxes. I'm not going to dwell on that, but what I want to dwell on is the tools that we've built in to make it easier for you. So a few examples here. If you're documenting vision and you checking it without glasses, it'll automatically default that to the other eye if you haven't filled it out yet. Now if I have filled both of them out and I want to change one of them, it won't revert back and match the other eye. For example, maybe they have a contact lens just in one eye. Now I can go ahead and change that and document it that way. You can type or click depending on your preference, or you can do a combination of the two as well. A couple other things that will happen is you'll see some areas of our system that will kind of stay out of the way until they're needed. We tried to keep the screen very clean. We wanted it to look as much like an exam that you've always done as we could. We wanted it to be very concise. And with that said, there are portions of the exam that you may not do on every single patient, but you need them available in case you do them with anyone, right? So for example, I have my pupils, confrontation fields, extraocular movement here, but I may need to do phobias, deductions, accommodations, cover tests, that kind of thing. That will kind of stay out of the way until you need it, and if you need it, you just come here and click on this plus button, and it will open it up right over here. You can fill it out, and then you can click the done button to move it out of the way again. Now, if I actually fill something out here, it'll turn this red, telling me that that's been used today. You can see an example here that I have this non-exam information that's red. Essentially, the non-exam information is some place where you can document things about this patient that is not really technically part of the exam. It doesn't show up if you print the exam. It's just kind of your own information about the patient. Since it's red right now and I open this exam, it's telling me that there's something in there from this patient's last exam or previous exams that I've documented previously. So I can go ahead and click that button and it will pull this up. So you can see I've documented several things about this patient, and I can come in here to look at them. So I once worked for a doctor who would document things like patients going on a vacation to Hawaii, and they have a dog named whatever. They have their own business. You can see that I put some of those things in there. When the patient would come back, he'd quickly glance at this and he'd start asking them how their trip to Hawaii was, how their dog's doing, how their daughter's doing, or whoever. The patients thought he was the most wonderful doctor in the world, thought he had the greatest memory, but really he just wrote it down. We wanted to give you something like that where you could document things that really are part of the exam. Pretty easy to add something new. I just type it in here, click the add button, and it will put the newest things at the top with the date that you typed them in there. So again, there's some areas that are kind of out of the way until you need them. Trying to keep the screen very clean and concise. Other areas, we've tried to help you by auto-documenting certain things that you do the same for pretty much every patient, like pressures. You're probably 99% of the time going to check your pressures the same way. So let's say you use a non-contact tonometer. We'll default it to non-contact. So if I put in a pressure, it will automatically set it to non-contact and put in the time for me. Now, if I happen to use a different type of tonometry that today with this patient, like application or tonopen, then I can go ahead and just change that and let the program auto-document it. It still saves time. Same with dilation. We'll have a default of whatever your most commonly used dilation drops are. If you happen to use something different today, you can go ahead and change it. Maybe I used phenylephrine with this patient because it didn't dilate well, or I only did it in the right eye, then I can quickly just adjust those. But again, 99% of your patients are always going to be the same. So we tried to build those efficiency tools in there for you to save some time. You'll see normal buttons like this, same type of thing. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same for everybody. You click the normal button. If you have the one patient that comes in that has something wrong, you can still click the normal button and then just go back and change the one thing or the two things that you found, and it still will help you speed things up inside of your exam. We commonly get asked, can we change the drop-down items? And the answer is yes. Any type of list you see inside of our system can be changed by you at any time. It's permission-driven. Almost everything inside of our system is permission-driven. So if you don't want random technician to be able to go and change, what shows up in your vision drop-downs, then you take the permission away from them. But maybe you want the lead technician or an administrator or just the doctor to be able to do this, then you give them the permission. But what I can do is I can just right click on any box where there's a drop down list, and I hover over the top. I'll get this little item checkbox. It'll show me everything that's in that list. I can put my cursor there, I can move things around, I can change things, and I just click OK with it, I'm done. And it'll go ahead and change my list for everybody who uses the system from that point going forward. So I could do that in my chief complaint or in my HPI. If I wanted to add more elements to one of these categories, I just right click on the category, hover over the top until I get items, and I can go ahead and change those if I want to. So we've tried to put the power in your hands to be able to customize this a little bit and do it on the fly if you need to. Really get things working with how you guys document and how your clinic flows. Another thing that we commonly get asked is, how do I look back at old pieces of information or old examinations? Well, there are a few ways inside of our system that you can do that. One of the most common ways is a grid like this. We call this a synopsis grid. Essentially, we've told it the specific pieces of data that we want to see in this grid, and it will show us every single exam that the patients had and what that data was on that particular date. So, for example, with visions and pressures, I can glance down in here and I can see how the vision was checked in each eye, what the vision was, and then what the patient's pressures were. So they came in, say with a vision of 2300 in that left eye and 2020 in the right, and I want to know if that's normal for them. I can just glance down and say, yeah, that's normal for them to have bad vision in that left eye. Same with the pressures. I could do that if I wanted to. Now, this vision and pressure grid comes standard with system, but we can actually build these anywhere. We've had people ask for chemistry ones, for synopsis grids for, like a glaucoma flow sheet that will show cup-disc ratios with them and things like that. So those can be built inside of the system with any pieces of data. Another way that you can look back at old data is to right-click on any single individual field. So for example, if all I want to see are the right eye visions for this patient going backwards, I can right-click there and I can click previous visit values, and it will pop open a grid and show me every single vision since this patient started coming to see me. Now that's every single vision in the right eye. So this is essentially one data entry box at a time. So maybe you want to go back and you want to see all previous values for pressure. Then I can see that. You can also see who the staff member was that entered it and what time of the day they entered it. So if you're curious on, maybe you do applanation tonometry and you want to see, if you're getting a difference between different staff employees or whatever, or you want to see what time of day, if they have pressure spikes or something, you can use this to do that. Let's jump over here and go through the refractive area. If you have auto lensometers or auto refractors and they are capable of outputting data, then we will be able to interface with them. So for example, if you have an auto lensometer that you can take your glasses to and read the lenses, and that it's capable of outputting data, you'd be able to come back and click the interface button after reading the glasses, and it will automatically pull the data in and place it into the correct boxes. We can also do auto refractions and switch back and forth between a wearing prescription and auto refraction if we want to, or we can document both if we need to. We've built this as kind of a pass-along system. So we figure that you're going to start your manifest refraction either from what they're wearing or from what you got on your auto refraction. So you can take that prescription and I can click to MRX and send it down to my manifest refraction down here. Then as I do my manifest, all I have to do is tweak it as I do that refraction and make any changes I need to. Again, we can document notes here, and then I can just go ahead and send that to the final refraction. Now you'll see these pull last. If I want to just pull whatever they were wearing last exam, I can click that button and it will pull in the numbers of the glasses that I documented in their most recent exam. Same with manifest. Whatever I refracted them last time, that I can have that pull in by clicking the button. The final, we've kind of separated these so that you can do a manifest and then you can say, okay, here's what I'm actually prescribing for this patient. Put something in here. If I give it an expiration date, I'm essentially giving permission for this to be written for the patient. So I can come here and I can put in notes. Maybe I want this to be progressive, and I want rose tint, and I want AR coating. Whatever I want to write in there, I can. I can give it an expiration date. And then what I want to do is I want to click the Save button. It's going to give me this message that it's been saved as the patient's default prescription. One of the things that can happen there is if you're using our optical module, that automatically sent that prescription over to the optical shop. So if the patient goes over there, they don't have to take a written thing, and neither does the optician have to come into the exam. When they go to add an optical order, it will automatically pull this prescription in for them. Now let's say that we want to do more than one pair of glasses. You can see that I've saved one prescription here today. I can just come back in here and I can tweak that prescription. So I'm going to lower down this a little bit. Let's take off a diopter here, and we'll change our notes, and we'll call this computer bifocal. And then I'm just going to leave everything else the same. Go ahead and click my Save button. I'll get my little message that it's been saved, and now I have the two. So again, on the optical side, they have access to both of those prescriptions, so they can fill 2 pairs of glasses if they need to. Now the nice thing about this on the clinical side is now, because we've saved those, we also have a history of every prescription that we've ever officially written for this patient. So I can click the Load button and I can come in and see every prescription I've ever written for this patient. Now you can see I use this patient a lot. So he has a lot of different prescriptions down in here. So I can go back and see a complete history of all these prescriptions. Those 2 that I just wrote are right there at the top. I'm going to elongate this so that I can see the entire thing. Once I elongate a window like this, from then on this computer, it will always remain that size for me. And that works with pretty much any window inside of our system. Now, another nice thing about this history grid is, let's say you have a patient that comes in and you just prescribed glasses for them 3 months ago, and they come in and they say, well, these glasses just aren't working, I don't like them. Really, I just wanted new frames. I wanted my same prescription as before. It was working great. Well, you can go back to that prescription that they really liked. Maybe it was last year's prescription, and you can just find it, double click on it, and it'll pull it into this final area. You can give it a new expiration date, and then you can go ahead and save it again for this patient. If you want to print a printed prescription for this patient, you can go ahead and click the Print button, and it will generate a printed prescription. Now, with all of our generated documents inside of our system, we use a Word merge, Microsoft Word merge. So the nice thing about this is we can make these look any way you want them to. You can see just an example here that we've done that we can put logos in. I've had practices who will put coupons on the bottom to try to get them to stay here at their optical shop. I've had practices that use little credit card type things, and they want the prescriptions printed on the credit card so that you can so that the patient can carry it in their wallet. So because we use this word merge, we can essentially make this look exactly how you want it to look. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm not going to save it. With the contact lenses, essentially this is their current contact lens. This is what they come in wearing. So I can select a brand here, and I'm going to select a base curve. I'm just going to put random numbers in here, and let's just put a contact lens in like that. This is what they came in wearing. I've just documented what it was. right? If I'm going to refit them or represcribe contact lenses, then I'm going to click on this contact lens details button, and it's going to take me to another page with a little bit more detail on checking their current contacts and refitting them if I need to, and then prescribing those. So this is essentially set up into 3 sections, and it's exactly what I just said. Here's their current contact lenses. This section right here, including these 2 grids, are their fit section, and then the bottom section is their final prescription. And then this top area, you can document, anything about the contact lenses and their wearing if you want to. This was also set up to be used as a follow-up page, so that's kind of why we have the patient comments and stuff at the top, so that if we wanted to open this as a new exam in 2 weeks and only have this page be part of it because they're just coming in for a follow-up on their contact lenses, then we can do it that way as well. So here up in the top, and again, I'm not going to get into too much detail because you know what goes in these boxes, but you can document an over refraction that shows right below, makes it easy to see the lens position, any movement and things like that. Now if you decide that this prescription is still good and you're just going to prescribe the same thing for this patient, then I can just click the to final button right here. It'll move it down there. I can give it an expiration date, and I can click my save button, and it works just like I showed you with the glasses prescription. Now let's say that this doesn't work too well. Let's say their vision's 20/50 and 20/60, and then I did a refraction, an over refraction. Probably didn't over refract them by that much, but let's do half diopter there and maybe plus 50 on that side, half diopter there. And that got me down to 20/20 in both eyes. So I'm just going to apply that to their prescription and then give it to them. If I wanted to just do that and I'm pretty confident that that's going to take care of it, then I'll probably just send it down to the final again and just make my tweaks down here to the sphere. But let's say that I want them to wear it for a week. Maybe I'm going to change the base curve or even the lens type. I actually would not change it here, but what I'd want to do there is I'd want to send it down to my fit area, and that's where I'd want to change the base curve and the lens type. So maybe I'm going to completely change the lenses because this one's just not fitting well. Then I'm going to go ahead and make those changes down here in my fit, and then I'm going to have them wear it for a week. So I send them off to wear it for a week. In that case, I'm going to click this grid button on both eyes because I changed both of those lenses, and it's going to add down here what I tried with this patient. Now this essentially is keeping a history of everything that you've tried with the patient in the past. All right, so if you have a patient come in and this contact isn't fitting well, you can glance down here and you can say, well, I've tried that, we've tried this prescription, and kind of get that history there. Now this will kind of flow forward as well. So when they come back in a week and I open this back up for a follow-up, I'll see this prescription still in there, and if I need to tweak it again, maybe it's still not fitting, then I just make those tweaks, and then I can keep going like that until I get it right. Once I get it right, then I just send it down to my final, and then I save it for the patient and dispense that or order it or whatever I have to do. So that's how the contact lens pages works. Again, it's 3 different sections: what they're currently wearing, what I'm fitting them with, and what I'm prescribing for them. I'll have that same history in the prescribing area as well of what I've actually finalized for this patient by clicking the load button and getting that history. Now I'm going to jump back to my workup page here. Now we've tried to build all these pages so that they flow in order. We'll have back and next buttons that you can just click on. So for example, I can click on the next button and it'll take me to the next most logical place, which would be in our examination. Now I'm going to click the back button, go back to my workup, because I have a few buttons up here that I can use if I need to. If I'm the technician and I am working up this patient and I want to check their history and meds and stuff, I can click on this button to take me there. If we built this last time reviewed mainly for the doctor, so they can come in and immediately see if it has been done today. So if I'm the doctor and I come in and I see this was reviewed on 1/4, then I know that my technician didn't do it. So the technician or whoever is updating this history of meds can just go into this by clicking on it, and they'll get the history of meds. Now this page is what we call static, meaning that all the information you put in here will carry forward. The next time the patient comes in, you'll just have to update it and make any changes for the patient. Now, if this is the first time this patient's been in, obviously everything will be blank. So I'm going to remove some of these items just by right-clicking and deleting, and I'm going to blank out this medications area. Now, each one of these sections works pretty much exactly the same. We'll have an add button, a none button, and then our little wizard tool. Now, the none button does exactly that. It just puts none or whatever the wording it needs. For example, in family history, it'll put no relevant family history and so forth. So that's what the none button does. Now you'll also have this add button. The add button will always open a little dialog box that'll allow you to enter the piece of data and any notes on it if you want to. Now all of the items for our history that need to be are meaningful use compliant. With medications and allergies and some of the history and stuff, that means that they're encoded in the background. So you're going to click on this little tool right here, this flashlight tool, and you're going to search for the med just by typing it in. You can select your med. I'm just going to select a random one here, and I'm going to click OK. I can fill in the route of administration and the frequency, and then I can go ahead and click the add button, and it'll place it into my grid. I can keep adding more medications like that until I'm done, and then I can click done. Now we do have an e-prescribing module available. If you e-prescribe a medication for the patient, that medication, let's say that you e-prescribe Travatan, that medication will automatically add itself to this grid for you. If you happen to handwrite a medication and you need to enter that medication into the patient's history manually, then you can come in and add the medication, and you can click on this handwritten RX and click done. That just tells our system that you handwrote the prescription instead of e-prescribed it. So essentially all these different areas work exactly the same. You'll also have a wizard tool. Now the wizard tool, what makes that nice is you can set up favorites inside the system. So you'll get these old ladies that come in with 20 meds, and you've set up your favorites list. You can come in and you can select several of those at the same time. They're on metformin, they're on albuterol, they're on lisinopril, and you can select all 3 of those, and then you can click the add. Then it will ask you, do you want to enter a frequency and a route of administration for any of those? If I click yes, it'll go through them one at a time and let me do that. If I click no, it'll just automatically add all 3 of those into my grid very quickly. Another nice thing about medications in our side of our system is that the e-prescribing module we use, which is Doctor First, will allow you, with consent from the patient, to look up other medications that they've been prescribed by other doctors and create a medication list and pull those in. So you might go into Doctor First and see that, over the last 2 years they've been prescribed lisinopril, metformin, albuterol, and so forth. And you can check all 3 of those inside the Doctor First area, and then those 3 items will pull down and become part of the patient's medication list inside of our system. So there are some things that are built into the system to try to get this information in very quickly. So that's kind of how this area works. Once it's done, I'm going to click that I reviewed it if I'm the technician. If I'm the doctor, then I'm going to click that, and it will put my electronic signature in there. Then I'll just click the next button. It'll take me back to here. It shows me that this has been reviewed today, and then I can continue on. Again, like I mentioned before, there are certain areas of the exam that kind of stay out of the way until you need them. Ancillary testing is one of them. I can click on that, and there are several different types of tests here you can use. If there's something you do in your office that we don't have on here, this is usually where we add it. If some company comes out with a new type of test and you buy it, we can add it to this page usually pretty easily, to kind of make them all here in the same area. Now the diagnostic testing page is for when you're going to do your visual fields and your OCTs, your photos, things like that. Now we've set this up so that when you first open it, it's completely blank. We didn't want you to have to look at a page full of data that you're never going to use. We wanted the eye to be drawn towards only the tests that you're actually going to perform. So you come to this page and you select which test you're going to do. Maybe I'm going to do an optic nerve OCT and a visual field. So now only those tests are on here. Whoever's performing the test is going to select what type they did. And if they know the indication, they're going to put in an indication. All right. Again, you can see we've set those so that they'll automatically copy down, but then I could change it, in one eye if it's different. I'll put an indication here. And these we can also interface with these machines. So the person performing the test would perform the test. Each machine is different on how you get it to output. Some of them you have to push a button, and some of them will output automatically. Once the machine's done what it needs to do, you can just click the interface button, and you'll get a little message. Once that, I haven't performed any tests today, so it's not finding that test. But if it finds it, I'll get a little message that says that the interface was complete, and it will go ahead and pull in an item or in that test for me to view. Now, what happens with that test, let's say I did pull in my optic nerve OCT here. What happens is it goes over here into the patient's attachments area. So every single patient will have this bold attachments area with a bunch of subcategories. Now you have the ability to change and name these subcategories whatever you want, add more if you want to. Essentially, these are where things go that you want to save for the patient. So there's my OCT. If I would have performed a test, that OCT would have immediately gone into this category. Now let's see what happens if I go into my OCT category, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click all, because right now I'm only seeing the things that have been pulled into this specific exam. If I click all, I can see all the prior exams as well, and you can see I play around with this patient, so he's just got a few things in here that may not really be OCTs, but he does have some real OCTs in here. So I can view those in a little thumbnail view. Now, obviously, I can't really read this, so if I wanted to open up in a larger view, I just double click on it and it'll open it up in a larger view. Now, one of the things that our program does is when you save files, it keeps it as that file type. For example, most OCT machines will output as a PDF. Most visual field machines output as a PDF. Most photos will output as a JPEG and that type of file. When our system pulls them in, they keep them as that type of file, and that's significant for a couple of different reasons. Number one, when you open those files, they'll open up in whatever Windows program that your computer's set to open them. So what happened when I opened the PDF is I opened it up in Adobe Reader. The significant portion of that is, let's say I have a JPEG and it's just opening up in a photo viewer, but I want it to change it so it opens up in a photo editor instead so that I can draw on it. Then it's very easy to do that, and you can draw on the photo and save it again. Now, if I want to, another significant thing is about keeping these as their native file types is if this patient comes in and he or she wants to take these files to a different doctor, a retina specialist or a glaucoma specialist or something, you can export them onto a flash drive and they'll be a PDF or a JPEG, so that wherever they take those, that other doctor is going to be able to view them as long as they have a computer. So you can see all the past exams. I can open up multiple at the same time if I want to, and view them side by side as well on these attachments. Now you can see over here that I can go back and look at old glasses prescriptions too. It tells me how many I've saved in the past, fundus photos and that kind of thing. So that's how the attachments work. That's how we interface with diagnostic equipment. After viewing that test or viewing the results of that test, the doctor can come in here and put in their interpretation on this. on what they found on here. So that's kind of how that diagnostic testing works. They can put in a plan as well. I'm going to click the next button, which will take me back here to the workup page. Once I'm completely done with my workup, my testing and everything like that, I can go ahead and click the next button and it'll go to my examination, which is essentially what the doctor is going to be performing. This is the area that we tried to make it as efficient as possible. We tried to give you the most options for documenting, and we tried to make it quick, right? So there are a few different things that you can do here. You can type just like you can in the other areas. We have drop-down items here. All these drop-down items are currently linked to an ICD-10 code. So that if I use them, it will suggest an ICD-10 code for me. If you want to change these drop-downs, you have the ability to change the drop-downs just like you do in the rest of our system. And we can relink them, any new drop-downs, to ICD-10 codes for you. Let me kind of show you how that works. The nice thing about this is you could go down and enter each one of these one at a time and fill this out. Another thing you could do is you could enter only the items that you actually find some sort of pathology or negative finding or whatever. So I could say, okay, I have a PIFR in that eye and I have a 1+ cataract, NS cataract in that eye. Then I could say, well, that's all the same in the other eye by clicking this button if I wanted to. I could clear a complete eye at a time if I wanted to. I could send one thing over by using these buttons, but not the other. So I'm going to send everything over, and then I'm going to assume that everything else is normal. So after I've filled those out, I'm just going to click the normal button. It will automatically default the things that have not been filled out yet to normal, but it left alone the things that I have filled out. So that makes it very quick to document. Just select things or type and then click the normal button to fill everything else out. Very quick. Another thing that the doctors like a lot is this last findings button that they can click, and it'll go back into the most recent exam and pull everything forward. Some doctors will push this before they even start their exam so that they can double check anything that they may have seen last time to see if it's changed. If nothing has changed, then you just leave it alone. But if it's changed, you can just come in and change it, and then you can move along. The posterior examination works pretty much exactly the same as the anterior. It just has the posterior segment findings. Now, you do have the ability to draw inside of our system. Each one of these little boxes is a drawing. Again, this is a section that kind of stays out of the way until you need it. Then you can click on it and it blows it up so that you can draw on it. Now with our drawing tool, we actually have two different drawing tools that you can choose from depending on what your preference is and how simple you want it to be. This drawing tool is a little bit more advanced than our other one, and it's more like your typical paint programs. All right, where you have a brush tool where you can just come in, select a color, and you can draw just by holding down your mouse. You can change, the thickness of your lines and things like that. I can always right-click and clear my drawing off if I want to. But as soon as I click on this picture, this drawing tool will pop up. I can do shapes. I can change foreground and background colors. I can do all sorts of things with this. Now, another thing that we've added is this area over here on the right. These are what we call stamps. If you hover over these, you'll see that they're associated with a particular finding. Now, we can add more stamps to this. These don't have to be used for whatever they're labeled. For example, if this looks like a sty to you, if this looks like a sty to you, you can use it as a sty and just put it on like that. If I'm doing a fundus, I might want to put on a retina tear, and I can rotate it around, and I can select my move tool here, and I can move it, and I can resize it. So you have a lot of different options with this tool. Now, if I want a more simple version of this, I can right-click at any time, just anywhere up in here, and I can click on this toggle button. That will toggle over to my more simple drawing tool. This essentially, you just either freehand or text how thick you want it and what color you want it. So I'm going to click freehand, and I'm going to click red, and I'm going to click medium thickness, and I'm just going to hold down my mouse. I'm going to draw around, do whatever I want here. So the system will remember which of these two tools you like to use, and will keep pulling up that same one until you switch. So it will kind of default to whichever one you like. I click done when I'm done. It kind of shrinks it down here just so it gets it out of the way. But if I were to print the exam or to click on this again, it would print large enough to be able to see. Now, once you've filled out your exam here, I'm going to go ahead and clear these out and just put a couple things in here just so you can see how this works. I mentioned that every single one of those drop downs are linked to an ICD-10 code. So once you're done with your exam, you can come down here and click potential diagnoses. And it's going to go through my entire exam, and based on what I put inside my exam, it's going to recommend some potential codes for you. So for example, it saw that I put in NS cataract here, so it's saying, hey, you might want to use this code right here. Now keep in mind that it can recognize if you put it in the other eye as well. So for example, let's say that, you know, I have a 1+ NS in the right eye. This is the right eye code. Well, if I go ahead and put a 2+ NS in the left eye, and I click my potentials, it recognizes that there's an NS cataract in both eyes, and it'll give you the bilateral code. It also went through my refraction, and based on the numbers of my refraction, it's saying, hey, you may want to use one of these codes as well. It also went through my indications and interpretations of my visual field in OCT, and it's saying, hey, based on what I see that you documented on that diagnostic testing page, you may want to use one of these as well. So I can just select one of these and send it to whichever diagnosis I want. So for example, let's say that my cataract's my primary. I select it and I click on primary. Then let's say mild POAG's my secondary, myopia is my tertiary, maybe presbyopia is my quaternary. And I can do it like that. You can see it moves them all over to here in order. Now let's say that you happen to type something in here that the program didn't recognize, and so you didn't get a potential code for it. You can come down here and click on this ICD-10 button, and we've tried to categorize and include pretty much every eye-related code that exists. So you can click on glaucoma, and you can see all the glaucoma codes, and you can select one and send it to whatever diagnosis you want. Or you can click on lacrimal, or on lid, or on vitreous, or whatever. And it makes it pretty easy to find a code if it didn't suggest a potential for you. Once I get my codes all over here, I'm going to go ahead and put in a plan. A lot of people call this problem-oriented charting, meaning that there's a documentation box for each individual diagnosis. So whatever I do, whatever I want to find, document, plan for this particular diagnosis, I'm going to put it in here. Now we've created these this macro area. These macros you actually can create on your own and make them say whatever you want. If I click on cataract, it will open up this up, and I can click on the monitor button, and it will click monitor for 6 months. So you have the ability to set these up and make them say whatever you want them to say. If you wanted to say monitor for 6 months, come back and we will reevaluate, then you can make it say that. You can have up to 7 different categories, and in each category you can have 8 different buttons. Right, so the categories repeat themselves for each diagnosis. So down here, if I had my my glaucoma diagnosis, I could click on the glaucoma and I could click Add Med, and it will put in whatever I had set that up to say. All right, so maybe I click on refractive down here and I gave them a glasses prescription. So again, an area that we've tried to make it really easy for you and quick for you to document here. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and put you want the patient to follow up with you in a month, in a year, or whatever. We have some quick buttons here that you can do. We can have those automatically add a recall into the system so that in a year they'll get a letter or a postcard, or however you do your recalls. Now down here is the patient management. This is essentially how you generate letters for other doctors about your patient. So we've put these into different categories. So you can say, oh, this patient was referred to me by Santa Claus, and their primary care physician is Dr. New, and co-managing physician is so-and-so, and I'm referring them out to a glaucoma specialist who is so-and-so. So each one of these has a letter that you can print, or sometimes they may have multiple letters. We can create more letters, and these letters can be different. So for example, you may generate a letter to Santa Claus who referred to you, and you want it to include visions and pressures and refractions and all the exam and everything. But you may generate a letter to the diabetic doctor that all you really wanted to include is your diagnoses and plan. So we can change those around. And like I showed with the prescriptions, the glasses prescriptions, we use word merge documents. So we can essentially make these pull any piece of information that we've entered inside this exam. We can put your logos at the top, headers, things like that, and you can store addresses for these doctors inside the systems, phone numbers, fax numbers, that type of thing inside of it. So you can see that I just generated a letter for this patient fairly quickly, because I've told it what to pull in for this letter. And again, we can make these letters look however you want and contain any specific information that you want. The nice thing about it being a word merge document as well is that if you decide, well, this particular doctor, I don't want to include that, I'm just going to delete it out, then I can take it out, or I can add something in there before I print it out or fax it to this specific doctor. So that's how that works. I can provide patient education to the patient if I want to as well. Once I'm done with that, I'm pretty much ready to finish. I'm going to click the next button. It's going to take me to what we call our charge slip page. Essentially, you can think of this as a super bill. All right. On a paper super bill, you're circling a CPT code, you're writing in your diagnoses, and you're handing it to your biller. We're kind of doing the same thing here, except we're doing it via the computer. This grid right up here is our super bill. All right, this is what we're sending to the biller. Down here and over here are just reference information. Here are some of the most common codes that you can click to add up to our grid. Over here, it'll recommend a code based on what we did during our examination. If you look down here, it'll kind of tell us how we did. In our E&M coding, we did well on HPI, great on review systems, great on history. We did not do very good on our exam, probably because I didn't fill out the post-year examination at all. But if we went back, that would update itself, and then these codes would go up a little higher. If I want to use this code that it suggests, I just click the button and it puts the code up in here. If I don't want to use the suggested code, I could just come over here and select the code that I want to use, and it will add that up in there too for me. If I want to remove one, I can remove it just by highlighting and clicking the minus button. Essentially, I'm getting this to look exactly how I want it to look to set it to the biller. You notice that when I came in here, it automatically added a couple codes for testing that we did. So we did a refraction and OCT, hit recognize the code that we chose for the OCT, and then it pulled just our regular exam, our diagnosis codes for the other tests. So once I get that where I want to be, I just right click here and I hover and click send to work list, and that will send it over to the billers where they can post the charges. Some practices will have their billers actually come into the exam and post the charges straight from inside here. So you have the option of sending it to them or having them open the exam and post them, depending on how you guys do things in your clinics and how your billers like to work. So that's pretty much the entire exam from start to finish. And thanks for watching the demo.